Hi. Okay, got that recording. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you. The faces are becoming familiar already, so this is nice. And I don't know if you also some attended the anti-racist workshop. That was really excellent. So hopefully we'll be able to weave some of those ideas in, our sessions as well. I guess I just want to say my name's Karen Grote for those who weren't here for the orientation. And my background mostly is in mediation, although I bring growing up in a family food business and the last 5 years or so, I've been doing more agriculture mediation work, farm coaching, things like that. So welcome to everybody. Leah, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Great to see some familiar faces. So for those who weren't at the orientation, I've been doing communication skills training and mediation and facilitating for the past 13 years or so. Prior to that, I was a school teacher and an HR director and a musician. So I've got kind of a mixed bag of things. I grow a lot of my own food. And I'm really excited about supporting markets and excited about sharing the stuff that Karen and I have to share. We enjoy teaching together, and we'll enjoy sharing what we've got with you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks. So, in the orientation, we did a sort of a quick overview of what to expect during this rollout. And the idea is 3 sessions with Leah and myself and 3 sessions with Leslie and Dar, and they're going to be doing a lot of the education and group practice around structures and things that are really support best practices in your markets and how to apply those things. And as you have this winter free to begin to have considerations on how you bring that into your market and personalize it. And that just in general is really what we want to be able to support, is to have these sessions be a community of practice, that they're relevant. And so we want to hear from you. If you have examples, if you questions, feel free to stop, interrupt, things that will really enhance your experience. And I know that the feedback we got last year was really helpful to hear from each other and what you're all doing and trying in your markets. Today, I mean, we are looking at, we're going to start out right away talking about conflict and also, some considerations about how do we sit with conflict and what are some causes, things that you already know, but just sort of how do we enter the sphere and then apply some skills. And what will happen in between the sessions, there might be practice things or other pieces of homework, I don't know, but hopefully just to become more mindful and aware about your methods of communication and what works for you, and also what in your role as market managers and or what other roles you have, what are things that are going to be the to-dos, the things that are helpful in communication, because there's plenty of don't do's. So we know what those are. So I just wanted, just to show of hands, how many of you, if you just are market managers, just wanted to check in? Okay. So that's half. And then the other half, I mean, just what are some of your roles? Is anyone here on the board? Okay. Wow. And then how about vendors? Interesting. Okay. So, I think so just always considering what role are you speaking from, and so we're going to start with some breakout rooms so you get to sort of check in meet each other a little bit more. And what we'd like to ask you to do is to sort of say what your roles are in your market. and what are some of the strengths that you bring to it? I think even just identifying what are some of the tasks that are currently required of you. And then, so some personal strengths, and then what would be a great takeaway from these meetings, these sessions? Like, what would you really like? And I think for me personally, would love to know about strengths that you would like to have as far as conflict goes, or just managing communication. So anything to add to that, Leah? For the break?
Just that, yeah. If you would designate someone in your breakout to take a few notes about your takeaways, we'd love to have you report those out when you come back.
Great. And let's be groups of 3, I think, something like that. And we'll give, I'm guessing 10 minutes. 5 to 10, yeah. So a warm hello to each other, what your roles are, what your strengths are, what you hope to get. And great, we just wanted to take a minute or two to see, anyone want to share what were some of the hopes for the group? Yes, Miranda.
So in our group, we all had the same thought. And a lot of people, we were kind of different levels in the organization. So some people were involved with multiple markets, and some conflicts were like moving locations or having transition in leadership, and how to just make everybody happy. Because when you get a group of people together, you don't always have the same ideas, and how can we make sure everybody is heard with and feel validated while making progress towards a goal?
Thank you. So multiple markets too.
See, Kirsten has their hand up.
Great.
Yeah, our group discussed like just kind of the basics of like wanting to be able to defuse any situations that occur without harming any feelings or as many feelings as cannot be harmed.
Yeah, do least harm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Other group? Hopes, takeaways. And also, I would love to see if you put in the chat just some of the strengths that you heard from folks that they bring to their role. I'm imagining just as, oftentimes what people, in a manager position or a leadership position, you're already somebody who holds, or in the ag world, you have a lot of patience and perseverance and willingness to, work with something that, you have deep value for. So other kinds of strengths that you heard, pop in the chat. And anything else, just before we move on, just to anyone else, as far as like, I'd love to take away this. If I could walk, if I could learn how to do. Okay. Well, as it happens, please let us know. Very important to be a leader. Thank you, Jimmy. Being a good listener. That's what we're going to talk about today, for sure. I think if we can start with, well, actually, before we do this, the session is recorded. And I know that there was a list of community agreements that you all had for the sessions going forward. And I'm wondering, Jimmy, if it's possible to bring those up really quickly. We just wanted to ask if there was anything else you wanted to add. And I think specifically, oftentimes, I think 2 things that aren't on there that I often had with mediation is that confidentiality, some concept around how do you have these discussions, because it's kind of a small world, small Maine and Vermont, and then the markets that you're in. And so having some method of being able to talk personally about situations, but also to hold confidence. And so anyone have anything they want to ask around confidentiality from the group? We're going to ask you to probably talk about your own specific scenarios and things like that. So we'll just trust that that's going to be valued and kept here. Then the other piece is just expect non-closure. That's part of what happens in the world of conflict and communication and planning and everything, you know. So working with that, and conflicts sometimes can be resolved immediately. Sometimes it may take a lot of time. So anything else to add? Leading difficult conversations between people, ability to connect with a huge variety of people in a meaningful way. Beautiful. Okay. Those are strengths. Is there so anyone adding on the community agreements? Nope. Okay, I see a lot of like red microphones with lines through them. So we'll keep going. All right, we're not gonna have many slides, but we're gonna start with the slide. Some of you may have seen this before, but is it going?
No, 1 second.
Okay.
We're kicking off with your first slide, Karen. Is that right?
No, we're not. We are kicking off. We are kicking off with a poll. I
Okay.
completely lost it there. So grouping.
Okay.
Before
I'm
we
gonna
get
launch
to
that poll. I'm ready to launch that poll.
we're gonna take a poll. And this is the poll. How comfortable are you with conflict on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being avoided at all costs, and 10 would be it's, you know, you are drawn to it. You will find yourself in the middle of it. Not that you're causing it, but you're just, you know, you need to be there. So put yourself on the scale.
And Karen, I'll just call out, it looks like they access the second question immediately here. So they're also going to number 2.
Okay. And then the second, and people are responding to the second question also, which was how comfortable are you with conflict in your role as market operator? If some of you are not that, then just in your role at the market.
And if you're on the phone and you can't access the poll, how could people give their response?
Like, maybe just say it out loud, Andrew, and we can record it. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great to ask. And to because we're going to talk about this a little bit. You know, looks like for the first one in general, how comfortable you're with conflict. Nobody put a 1 or a 2. And nobody's at a 10, but somebody's at a 9. So would whoever's at a 9, would you be willing to, you know, share your insight? Why are you there?
That's a really good question. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't like to be there, but I often find myself there. So I'd rather be at a 5. That was a hard question to answer. I feel like polls are often I find hard to answer, but that was hard.
Well, I appreciate you're willing to just do your first instinct. And I'm curious, when you say you find yourself there, what's your role in the market?
Oh, well, I'm a vendor and I'm also the secretary of the steering committee.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you hold multiple hats where you could find yourself. Very much so.
Yep.
Yeah. And then when you were answering that, is it beyond just your role in the market? Is it just other types of conflict?
Oh yeah. Of course.
So it'll be interesting to discover how you find yourself there. For somebody who's a 5, you said, oh, I'd rather be a 5. Who is a 5? Why do you put yourself there?
I put myself as a 5. I did it because I don't like conflict at all, but I can handle it if it comes up. So I figured 5 was an appropriate spot to put myself.
Yeah. And was there any particular, place you were picturing this conflict? Is it your general life? Is it, did you find
All over.
all
I
over?
work with children in a behavioral aspect. So I like almost every client I work with, there's conflict of
Oh.
some degree in some category. So I'm used to it, but it's definitely not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you. So definitely unavoidable in your case. So
Yes.
how about some of the 3s? Anyone who's a 3? How did you find yourself a 3? Looking for a hand. Of course you wouldn't raise your hand. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm curious. I see if like somebody picked 2 for question number 2, like at
Okay.
market, but they didn't pick it for the first one. If that person wants to share, like it seems like
Yeah.
at your market, you're less comfortable with conflict than
Yeah. Thank you. Good question.
Joshua.
That would be me. Yeah, I'm not the market manager, so I fill in certain roles. I sit on the board of directors for our market, and personally, in my personal life, I generally like to head off confrontation quickly and kind of beat it back, I guess is the word for it. But within the market, I think it's difficult to be confrontational because people's feelings are going to get hurt and you're not always right. And so and also it's not my role. So anytime that those things come up, it's usually because somebody has COVID, or things like that. So I like to defer to the people that we have market protocols in place for conflict resolution, but I would prefer not to be that person at market. I want to be the guy that shows up and everybody's like, hey, and then I leave. So.
Thank you, Joshua. I mean, that really is appropriate then, like the 2 rating, right? Because you're saying it's not really your role, and it's really not where you even necessarily, you have protocols already in place. You have structures for this. So that's neat. And in that second category, there were quite a few people in the 6. I'm curious to hear from some of those who picked yourself as a 6. Anyone willing to share? And maybe the question would be, what would you like to learn? Like, what would be helpful to get to 7 if you wanted to feel more comfortable?
I put 6.
Thanks, Georgie.
Yeah, and I think it was higher for me than the first question. And I think the main reason was because I'm a market manager, and so just having that title, it kind of puts you in a position. It kind of gives you like more backing to push back, which is something that I don't naturally love to do. And so it sort of like forces you to be good at it, or at least to try. And I think something for me that I would really love to have is some more conflict resolution protocols, because I think that would make me feel more confident and stronger in my responses and how to go about dealing with it.
So in the protocols being something that's explicit, that everybody knows what those protocols are. Is that what you're referring to? Or
yeah, I think I think kind of for general conflicts that everyone knows, and we've kind of tried to do this with a process, but I think just having it will be helpful to have like your expertise to kind of guide that. And then I also think there are some scenarios where like safety has been an issue. or potential issue. And so kind of having a guideline or a protocol to know, like, if this is a situation where you feel unsafe,
Yeah.
conflict has accelerated, like it's okay to do XYZ, which I might hesitate to take like a stronger action if I didn't have that protocol to back me
Yeah.
up.
Thank you for clarifying that. And also identifying your role power. I mean, that is an expectation that you step into that as a market manager. And so just acknowledging that you're trying to apply that, and it's important, to be able to do that. Anyone else want to add to either where they put themselves in their role in the market or just in their personal life?
Karen, I'm jumping in late, but
Hi, Gretchen.
I guess hi. I guess I look at conflict differently, and I don't look at it as a bad thing. Just because in my life I have 8 kids. There's always conflict. It's inevitable. So you kind of have to embrace it. And I will say at market, even though I'm not one of the assigned co-managers, as an officer, I feel like, and as one of the more, I'll say tenured, because I've been there the second longest of any of the vendors, I will sometimes bring up points that make other people uncomfortable. But it's important, I think, to plant those seeds of, hey, this didn't get handled quite the way maybe it should have, or maybe we need to improve our communication amongst each other so that we all know what's going on. I know that that's uncomfortable for many of the people there, but if I didn't say it, possibly someone else is feeling those same vibes or are in that same situation. So I guess I understand the whole conflict and conflict resolution piece, but I guess I come at it from a positive place where conflict is making sure that communication and lines of communication are open so that we can see each other's points of view.
Yeah, thank you. And what number did you give yourself, Gretchen?
I think I answered the first question, but on the second question, instinctively, I would say a 10.
Yeah. Yeah. I think somebody else was a 10 too. Who else was a 10?
I was same market as Josh, who was what were you, a 3, Josh?
Yeah,
but
2.
A 2, yeah.
Yeah.
I answered 10 because I feel I was thinking of it in my role as a vendor. Oftentimes rather than having to make the decision about what I need to do, basically my job is to set up the stand and my job is to set up the stand. I don't have to be there in the capacity as thinking about, what needs to be set up other than that. And then I can just kind of chime in. And if anyone needs me to do this or that, they're asking it directly of me rather than, I'm very comfortable in that position. But yeah, I can see where it would be more challenging to fill another role and to deal with conflict in that way.
Thank you for sharing that. And that whole aspect of sort of self-management, when it's your sphere, it's more comfortable with that, if that's what you mean. Okay. Anyone else want to comment on that? We can.
I guess I will.
Okay.
So, in my personal life with conflict, I've pretty much lived in conflict 24/7, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. I'm about a 7. I do get tired of conflict like everybody else does, but if I'm needed to step in on something and help resolve something, I'm more than happy to do that.
Wow. So part of, for you, Barbara, could even be, how do you preserve some of your self-energy? So if you're in it all the time, because people do have different realms they are in. And so even
conflict has dwindled quite a bit the last year, but for quite a while I was still in it for quite a bit, and very high conflict in some cases. And there were a couple instances at our market where I had to step in, and I was more than happy to step in before anyone else could
Mhm.
because they were unsavory situations.
Okay. So these are strengths, too, that, and just like as Gretchen was saying, that's a place that she's comfortable walking into, and Ben too. So, ways that you can sort of work with each other and learn from each other and how you do that. And we're going to learn some skills around that. So hopefully it will be more comfortable going forward, because it's I don't know if we have time to go to the slides. Jimmy, what do you think? Really quick, Leah, because we were going to shift to the chairs.
Do you want to go to the
Yeah,
slides?
we were gonna do the slides after the chairs, but if you want to flip that.
No, that sounds good. Let's go to it. Let's go to the chairs. So maybe you
Okay.
maybe you could do the transition.
Yeah,
Really good.
yeah. All right, super.
Thank you.
So when it comes to understanding the communication skills that are helpful when in conflict or anytime, I'm going to share with you some things that are drawn from a body of work by Marshall Rosenberg. He's a clinical psychologist, and the body of work is called Nonviolent Communication. And I'll share with you some of these skills that we will then draw on in the rest of our work together. So Marshall Rosenberg grew up in inner city Detroit, witnessed a fair amount of conflict and violence during race riots in the 1940s, was very curious about how communication impacts our ability to navigate conflict, what goes on in conflict, and made it a life study. So Marshall came up with this thought that underneath conflict is something that motivates or explains why the conflict is important to each person that's involved. That whatever it is that we say or do, how we show up in the world, always is connected to values that we hold as really important, that underpin. And if we are curious about those values in ourselves and others, that the ability to de-escalate conflict and to connect with conflict and with each other in a way that creates solutions is greatly increased. So I'm going to start with these qualities, which Marshall Rosenberg called the universal human needs. And the universal human needs are intangible qualities that are in common to all humans. So in order to sort of make the list as a universal human need, something would need to be not an object, not a thing, not a condition, but rather an intangible kind of quality of life. So I'm going to put up a screen share, and I'm going to invite you to think about, what do you think might be on this list for all humans? And let's see. There we go. So the universal human needs. So these are intrinsic. They're part of our humanity. These are qualities that we can imagine are true for everybody, no matter what culture we're in, no matter what age we are, just across the board. When these qualities are present, humans thrive. So anybody got ideas, just throw them out. I'm going to put them on this list. What do you think helps humans thrive?
Miranda put in the chat, sense of safety.
Excellent. And yes, by all means, put them in the chat or call them out. Either way is great with me. And I heard somebody say,
Yeah, that was me. Interpersonal connection.
Interpersonal connection. Great.
Feeling heard or understood.
Be heard, understood. Great. Anything else that you think all humans need?
The chat, feeling valued.
It said a sense of belonging.
Yes. Great.
Sense of purpose. Somebody may have said that.
Mm.
And
yeah.
what's the word? Appreciated, feeling like their efforts and their contributions are appreciated. I've really seen how much that impacts people. And if you work in the nonprofit world, you know that you're at least 30% of your pay is just coming from appreciation. It's not actual pay. People are motivated by feeling appreciated.
Yes.
Better.
Yes. Wonderful. Yeah.
Did you name Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So that would be food and shelter and sort of moving its way up.
The basics for us to be able to keep our physical bodies functioning. Very important. Anything else people would like to see on the list that you think would be in common for everybody?
See, good health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. Health and wellness.
That was curious.
I have a personal favorite to matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get the idea here that these are these, you could even call them motivators. They're like underneath whatever we're doing, saying, feeling. Just before I take the screen share down, is there anything that, anything else that anybody is just like dying to get on this list?
I've often heard people say to contribute.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fundamental to our humanity to want to contribute in some way. Beautiful. All right. So I'm gonna just take this down for now, and so I can see your beautiful faces again. So when Marshall Rosenberg came up with this concept, he didn't make like a one dogmatic list. Here are the needs. More, he wanted to get us thinking about what are the underlying qualities in humans and name them as best we can, so that we can talk about them. And you, if you haven't already, you will receive a file, and Jimmy's also going to put it in the chat. It will be a 2-page document that has a list of human feelings and a list of the universal human needs. And in a few minutes, we're going to draw on that. So if you are able to access it, it'll be helpful in just a bit. So the needs list can be very long and very varied. The idea of it is needs are different from strategies. So the needs are the underlying motivational energies. Strategies are what we do in the world to tend to them. So I might have a need, I might have a feeling of being hungry, and I might have a strategy of eating a sandwich. Or I might have a need of companionship, and I might have a strategy of calling a friend. So the needs are underneath there. So you can kind of begin to extrapolate that when somebody is saying things that in some way seem to be stirring conflict, there's needs involved here. There are important motivators underneath whatever this person is saying or doing. So we're going to look at how feelings and needs are connected. In particular, think of feelings as a little bit like the dashboard light on your car. So that dashboard light sometimes comes up and says check oil. When feelings come up, they're saying check needs. So we have feelings in order to tune into what needs are here that we can then tend to with some good solid strategies. So this process and this way of thinking about things gives us a lot of choice, and gives us the opportunity to create more mindful strategies. So I'm going really fast. I teach this typically in a long course that takes 12 hours. So you're getting this little snippet. So I'd like to, and then also I want to invite you that you may have questions bubbling that we can't get to, and I'm really happy to receive those. Maybe we can find a way that they can come to me as an email that I can answer, because I know I can't answer it all. So we've been culturally conditioned to manage hard to hear messages or receive things that are difficult and then react in a certain way. And I'd like to do a little demo that allows us to look at how we've been conditioned around conflict and what this framework that I just shared with you can bring to inform that and add to your choices about how to show up in conflict. So this is called the 4 chairs. So I'm sharing these 4 chairs, and they are going to be used to make a little demonstration. So first, I'd like to ask you to think of something, and I think it would be great help to think of something that has ever happened in a market context. Something that someone has said or could say that if you heard it, you would be bugged by it. Maybe it would be more than just being bugged. Maybe you would be really irritated, or maybe you'd have you'd have some reaction to hearing this. And so think about that for a minute in the privacy of your own mind. See if you can call up, what's a sentence that if you heard it, it would create a reaction inside you. Maybe you wouldn't say anything, maybe you would, but the main thing is something that would stir something up in you. Okay, so just think about that for a moment. While you're thinking, I'm going to dazzle you with my drawing skills, I hope. As soon as I find my annotate. And all right. So, oops, that's not what I want. I want. All right, so I'm going to put myself in a chair. And I'm wondering, is there somebody who'd be willing to say out loud the sentence that you're thinking of, and to do so a few different times on cue when I ask you to help me with my demo? So anybody who's got one that you're willing to say out loud a few times?
I see a hand up.
And I can't see everybody. Yeah.
I see a hand
Who
up
is that, Jimmy?
from Miranda. Thanks for volunteering, Miranda.
I just will
Yes,
provide context for the first time, and then I'll just say the sentence every time. There was a parking conflict. This actually happened. There was a parking conflict between vendors, and it didn't go the way one vendor wanted it to go, and they ended it with, "You need to do a better job." So my sentence, or you need to be better at your job. So my sentence is, "You need to be better at your job."
That will work very, very well. Thank you. All right. Okay, so I am sitting in chair 1. In chair 1 is representing a way that I've been very well culturally conditioned to react when I'm hearing something that is upsetting to me to hear. I'm so well conditioned at this, I do it before I even can think. And I may or may not say it out loud, but this is what I might be thinking internally. Okay, Miranda, if you would say that with gusto.
You need to be better at your job.
I can't believe she's saying this. And, you know, she really doesn't have a clue about what my job even entails. And I don't really have to listen to this because she doesn't really know what she's talking about. And, you know, people like her are really annoying. Okay. So there's a little example of some of the thoughts that could be going on in my head when I am operating from my cultural conditioning to very quickly make the problem the other person's fault. So in chair one, my mind is very quickly going toward all the reasons why I don't really need to take in what they're saying, all the reasons why they're at fault, they're wrong, they're misguided, it's them. Okay. So, you know, just notice, is this familiar at all? Is this like kind of familiar cultural conditioning? Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to see if I can grab my little person, my little self, and move me to chair two. Oops. Oh, my person isn't moving today. All right, let's imagine that my little person now hops over to chair two. I'm going to just try to get her to hop one more time. There we go. All right, so here I am sitting in chair two. Miranda, if you would say it once more, I'll show you what chair two sounds like.
You need to do better at your job.
Oh my gosh, she's probably right. I don't think I'm very good at this. I mean, I really want to be good at this, but you know, there's so many things I could probably do better. And, you know, it's like when I was a kid, I remember my parents were telling me that I really needed to, you know, shape up. And, you know, there's just so many ways that I just don't get it. Okay, chair two. Now it's, there's fault finding, but now whose fault is it? Anybody? It's me. Right. So in chair one, I quickly am finding fault in the other. In chair two, I'm quickly finding fault in myself. So here we are in this hamster wheel that we often find ourselves in. Something uncomfortable happens and our minds are just looking for where's the blame, where's the fault? Is it me? Is it them? Is it me? Is it them? And this is exhausting. And some people, many of us become chairbidextrous. We can kind of straddle the your fault and my fault very, very comfortably. So this space doesn't give a lot of room for curiosity towards solutions. It doesn't give a lot of space for let's try to hear each other. So I'm going to move myself over to chair three where there's a lot more opportunity. So this is starting to tune into what the nonviolent communication has to offer. So in chair three, I'm going to do something totally different internally. And I'd like you to listen and see if you can pick up on what it is I'm doing. All right. So Miranda, please deliver again.
You need to do better at your job.
So I notice, you know, this is internal and I'm checking myself out. I'm noticing that I feel a little heaviness in my chest, a little tightness in my body. I'd say I'm feeling alarmed and a little scared. And I'm noticing that what's really important to me here is appreciation and maybe to be seen, and maybe to be understood. All right, so please tell me what you heard me do or saw me do in chair three. Anybody notice what I was doing? You can just pick out any little part of it and call it out.
You were thinking about your needs, physical and mental.
Yeah, exactly. So I was looking at my own needs, and I also noticed, like physical, I noticed my body. I named some feelings and I tied it to the needs as quickly as I could. So there's this direct pathway from our bodies to our needs that bypasses our like logical thinking, which can be helpful. So if I'm feeling upset and I'm analyzing it with my mind, I usually end up quickly back here. But if I notice my body, okay, feeling a little tight, feeling some pressure, it helps me to notice, okay, I'm a little scared, I'm a little alarmed, and that is a good pathway to, so what's important to me? I want to be appreciated, I want to be understood, I want to be seen. Okay. So this we call self-empathy. We do our best conflict work when we take a minute to check in with ourselves, because we've been so well culturally conditioned otherwise that if we don't take a pause to check with ourselves, we're going to probably slip back here and have some judgments about ourselves or the other. When we're here, there's no fault, there's no blame, there's simply what I notice in myself. Okay, this seems to bother me, this seems to be stirring something up, so what are the needs that matter to me? When I do this work in chair 3, I often find that I naturally get curious about chair 4. In chair 4, I am wondering what needs could be motivating the other when they say the thing they say or do the thing they do. So I want to ask you, Miranda, to say it one more time, and then I'm going to ask the group to help me a bit.
You need to be better at your job.
Okay, team. If you have access to that handout and want to look at that feelings page, I'm wondering what feelings off of that page do you think this person who's saying this might be having? It's just a guess, you don't know because you're not in their body, but if you had to guess, just call out or put in the chat some feelings you think could be going on in this person.
Frustrated?
Yeah, could be frustrated.
Aggravated.
Any aggravated?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Good. Yes.
Possibly
Maybe.
worried.
Might be worried. Yeah. Yep.
Maybe they're a little covetous of your job.
So something like envious or jealous in some way. And usually when somebody's feeling that way, covetous of your job, there's probably a whole host of additional feelings that connect with that as well. So let's imagine this person has these feelings we've named, some combination of them. Now look at the page that's simply the universal needs. So the universal needs, there's a whole bunch of on that page. They're kind of chunked by categories. Just make some guesses. What could be important to this person when they say this in the realm of needs?
Empathy and cooperation.
Empathy, cooperation. Sure.
To be heard and understood.
To be heard and understood. Yeah.
Possibly
Anything
honoring.
else you think? Maybe honoring agreements. There might have been agreements in place. Yeah.
I'm not sure how to articulate this, and I don't really see it clearly here, but I think it's maybe like predictability or consistency, structure. Something that I think may not be here, but I feel like I have, people in my life who struggle a lot with anxiety, and I've learned that predictability and consistency really help bring calm. So maybe the ultimate underlying is calm that people need. But so because when things are not feeling that way, it creates real fear and discomfort for them. Does that make sense? Like,
it makes a lot of sense to me. The person could be feeling some fear and needing some structure and order and predictability. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. Wonderful. Great. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to take the screen share down because I'm rushing my way along. So what I want to do is try to tie this together in terms of conflict. If conflict's happening, whether it's between me and someone else or I'm witnessing it between others, there are always needs underlying for everybody involved. And my conditioning might cause me to quickly try to judge who's right and who's wrong. And what can be way more effective in any conflict situation is being curious about what needs underlie the folks that are involved. Because when the needs are brought up into the light and considered, often there can be some real meaningful then conversation about how do we tend to the needs that are so important here. And there can be a conversation at a whole new level. If you tell me I'm wrong and bad, I'm going to push back against you and we aren't going to get too far. But if you say to me, I wonder if you're feeling worried and really wanting some consistency, now you got me hooked. Yeah, let's talk. You know, now I'm starting to have a sense I'm getting gotten on a deeper level, and I want to share how it is I want both of us to be able to share how it is for us. So that's in a nutshell. The 4 chairs and a very teeny little taste of nonviolent communication. And we'll keep threading this in throughout our time together. And also, we will be providing some resources if you're interested in learning more of the nonviolent communication framework down the road. All right, so Karen, I'm just noticing time, and I know we had said that we didn't want to go more than 5 past 10 if we could, so I think we're kind of there.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And I didn't know, Jimmy. Oh, I think we'll start. I mean, we're going to go to a breakout exercise, but before that, I think maybe just jumping to slide 5 or 6, because I mean, we've been talking about what helps, you know, I think at this point, Leah, you know, and so I don't know if we want to bring that slide up.
We're
So
on
I'm seeing a
6
slide.
right now.
Yeah, we're going to be on 6. There we go. Okay. So some of the other ones were parts that we already covered. And there was also a handout that was sort of sent, a bulletin sent to everyone about active listening. And I'm guessing you're all familiar with active listening and some of the things that are useful. And are we starting the slides?
The slide is up.
Oh my gosh, well, what am I looking at? I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm not looking at the frog or horse. What do you see? Did you see that? The first one is the frog, the second one's the horse, and they're the same picture.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many aspects. If we think about what can impact conflict, it's oftentimes that our perceptions are just coming from a different place, just like in the 4 chairs. So just what helps in getting clear about that. And so just to the next slide, I think it was already, you know, mentioned what happens when people are in distress. I think even Miranda, with the example that you gave, somebody comes up with a snappy comment. So issues often become polarized. There's sometimes little or no dialogue. High emotions can happen that get charged. I use disputants because this really is not about the other, because we all have conflict, but oftentimes the way you with the brain, it becomes quite constricted in terms of its focus. And so it's very difficult to do perspective taking. So a person is often focusing on the differences, often feeling defensive, self-protective, or justifying. So if people are coming to you in conflict, they're usually they want to be heard. They want to justify. They want you to know, explain their position. So, and that the key piece here is identifying needs and listening. So we're going to jump. The next slide is just a quick summary on active listening, and just to what Leah was talking about in terms of holding curiosity and consideration, trying to be mindful and give full attention. That it can be difficult when you're at a busy market time, but this is something that you can just practice at home every day. So we want to, it's keeping open-minded, curious, and paying attention to what the speaker's saying, what the person is saying to you. And so we want you to practice the reflective listening. That is probably the key skill, at least in the role of in mediation. I think the person who's the one who works with children, I'm imagining that you often have to reflect back what their reality is before other direction can be given. It's an opportunity to give some empathy and to let them know to do connection before correction, as Leah would say. So with reflective listening, you want to let the speaker know that you've heard them. You can restate their needs. You can acknowledge their strong feelings or why it matters. Do you want to add to that at all, Leah, before we jump to the next slide?
Thanks for saying connection before correction. That's wonderful. I think I had something to say, but it just like slipped out of my brain. So I think we'll just keep rolling. And if I think of it, I'll jump back in.
Okay, so here's what we have. We're going to jump into breakout rooms in pairs. It's going to be random. And you'll each have the opportunity to be a speaker and a listener. What we would like you to do as the speaker, think of a real life situation in your role at the market, where there was either conflict or you felt unsure about what to do, upset, uncertain, whatever it is, for how to address the situation. Or it's still lingering with you. And you don't have to, you can use discretion, you don't have to give a lot of details, but tell your partner the nature of the conflict and the disconnect that's happening. Break it down a bit. If you have an idea about how to approach it, share that. So you're going to have about 2 minutes to do that, 2 or 3 minutes, and you'll be surprised how much you can say in 2 minutes. And this listener, we'd like you just to listen with full attention, nod or whatever, but no asking questions. We really refrain from doing any problem solving or advice giving. We just want to practice just listening. And so once the person is done in the 2 or 3 minutes, go ahead and reflect back to them what you heard them say. Acknowledge what you can put it all in your own words, or you can reflect back all that they said. Just check in for accuracy at the end. Like, did I get it all? Or it seems like you're really wanting to do this or that. However it ends for them. I hope that makes sense. So reflect back the feelings, the needs, and the requests with no advice, and then switch. Okay. We'll get into the other stuff later, but we just want you to practice the pause and the listening and the reflection.
Welcome back, everyone.
How was that? I see some nodding. I was able to observe a little bit, and that was wonderful job. Just you had a conflict right to go to, and really a concise way to reflect it back. Any comments that people want to share about in their group or what it was like listening? Any challenges?
I feel like with both of the conflicts that we shared in our group was just like frustration coming up as sort of this recurring theme. And I feel like that's just sort of like a huge part of like any conflict, especially when you're in a role or position where you're expected to like have a resolution or to try and like mitigate the conflict. Is just frustration is sometimes a place to get stuck.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia. Yeah.
One thing that resonated for me, and this is even like just broadly in my universe, is like when there is a conflict, you know, like trying to come up with a solution. And I'm not sure that that was what the assignment was. The assignment was just to like listen and reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yes, when it's an issue that like has a high emotional charge, I always find that I want to like come up with a solution right away, you know, and so just listening to the person that I was talking to, I kind of was trying to just reflect what they said and not, why don't you, have you tried this? Have you thought about this? And that sort of thing. And in my personal life, I find that all the time too with, you know, people in my world. And so that's a big challenge for me, in an area where I could, would love to have some growth.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
To build on what Terry said, I think our instinct is to try to fix things. But I have found lots of times if you turn it around and say, well, what do you think would solve the problem? Sometimes it's insightful to get their opinion. Sometimes it's what you think instantly, and sometimes it's something even smaller or bigger, but it just adds to that communication piece.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, just asking, well, what would you propose? What would you need? Yeah, even though your role might be to fix, you know, that might be part of the responsibility. But just listening where people are first. Anyone else?
Our conflicts and ours are both based around people's livelihoods feeling imperiled, so their well-being.
That's high stakes. You know, that's really upsetting. So, you know, even more important that the person feels heard first. Because there's such a, you can imagine, you know, when you're self-protective, what you need to do. So, anything else?
Something I struggle with when I'm trying to actively listen and reflect back is being compassionate, but not coming across as agreeing. Like I can hear you and hear what you're saying and offer that validation, but I'm often a yes person. So I will come across as like, I agree with you. And that's not always my intent.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, because people often think that if you reflect back something, it means that you agree with them. And so sometimes it's just the phrasing. So we can talk about that a little bit. You know, so you're needing X, Y, and Z. So you're really upset about X, Y, and Z, or rather than orienting it to yourself. Because otherwise it might seem like you're, you know, so you can align with people without necessarily agreeing. And it's, but people often want that from you. Please agree with me. Mediators work with this a lot, because please be on my side. So sometimes it's just language. Other comments?
So, like I said earlier, I'm very comfortable with conflict since I've had a lot of it in my life. So I've actually grown to learn one of the best ways to kind of combat it is ask specifically, all right, how are you feeling about this situation? And what is it you specifically need me to help with? Is there a way that I can help? And then I would actually just talk it out and just ask as many questions as I could without seeming like patronizing or anything like that. There is a fine balance to it.
Yes, thank you. So, I mean, that's staying with them and really wanting to hear from them. And asking them, sometimes people don't have anything they want you to do, right? There isn't, or you might turn out that it's nothing you can do anything about, but you got clear, or they got clear that they really need to go speak to somebody else, or it has to be handled in a different way. And so hopefully that's where really digging into some of the structures and protocols that you have in place or need to put in place. So those can be things you refer to.
Yeah, sometimes I hear other people refer to it as like asking questions like you're talking to a child. Because if children can be complicated and you need to know exactly how they're feeling to be able to help them. So it's the same thing for adults. Just ask and make sure that everything is fully clarified before you get to figuring out a solution.
I think it's really interesting that Barbara said that, because I once read in the concept of working with children that sometimes it's really important to listen and to ask lots of questions, but in the end, ask them, is this something you can do and settle for yourselves? I mean, can you go to this other person and can you talk to them about this? Or what exactly is it you need me to do? I think it makes all of us more independent if we have that sounding board, and then we can feel empowered to make a change for the better ourselves.
On a similar vein, one of the things that I use in my own personal life is the question, comfort or solutions. Like, are you telling me this because you just want to complain about something and you don't really need a solution, you just need to get it off your chest? Or do you actually want me to offer suggestions and like assistance with what is currently causing a problem?
That's great, Kirsten. So it's really, you're just asking, what do they need? You know, is it a listening, or do you want a suggestion here? Absolutely. Anything else? So I'm sure we're going to be circling back with this, and it's something you can always try out anytime, you know, especially if you find yourself charged about something, somebody's coming to you about something, just take a pause and reflect back. You know, do I have this right? This seems really important to you, you know, before you take the next step. So I think we're going to transition. I think it's already come up about types of conflict that you're having. And I'm wondering if we can put up the slides really quick, because we're going to go on to another exercise to do. They might already be up. Are we on number 10?
No, hang on one sec.
Okay. You'll have to tell me, because there's a what is conflict?
Okay. We're at active listening skills slide.
Oh, okay. So we've gone through that. I don't know if you saw that picture of the static. That's what that was. Somebody else was talking about frustration. That's what the slide I often use when I talk about conflict, and that your role is, you know, we want to just take the static down so the communication can start to happen. And it's a great analogy too for the what happens with the brain too, when you kind of go offline when you're feeling distress about something. It's very hard to engage the prefrontal cortex and have a good thinking mind. So wanting to settle first. But this is just an example. I think some of you had talked about different examples in your market. And our people, just the purpose of reflection too is like, what are people just talking about? What's their emphasis? It's, you know, what perspective are they coming from? And do they have differences in their needs and priorities? What part, you know, what part of the elephant are they orienting to? So thinking about that piece. The next slide. So perspective is a big aspect of how impact on our conflict, because I mean, so I've heard it said that 80% of conflict is often miscommunication, misinformation, lack of information, roadblocks, whether you're doing it on purpose or not. And I think that you'll be hearing a lot about how important transparency is in the market, and to be able to have clear expectations and make it so they're consistent. So it's something that you can refer to. So even with those things in place, there'll be this aspect of miscommunication and misinformation. There's also, I mean, obviously real or perceived differences in needs and wants and priorities. There's also differences in values and perceptions and beliefs and attitudes. And again, you know, in reference to the anti-racist toolkit, you know, part of, you can't, you know, you really have to make an active, you know, you have to make an effort to really try to reach out and understand. You can't make assumptions, you know, try not to make just assumptions, because there's such a depth of difference between what culture we're in, what generation we're in, what is our own experience, speaking from our experience, speaking from our perspective. So giving space for that. And I realize these things take time. Although if you even just hold it in your sphere of thinking, that can go with you. Even if you don't talk about it, you're holding it in your presence. And then structural and limited resources are often a big piece of conflict. And I'm imagining you experience this a lot in the market. And just when you were saying these people, you know, some vendors, they just absolutely don't want to move. You know, what is the physical environment? What are the factors? What's the layout, the setup? What are the rules to perform you know, what's required for the tasks, the distance between people? It could be laws and mandates and changes in the environment. We've heard conflicts before that have come up regarding just weather. So those are typical kinds of things that would impact. And so one of the things we wanted to do we want to go to the next slide? Oh, and we want to try that's just how many squares? How many squares do you see? Do you count? Yeah, so many. Yeah. So I've heard it's 16. Does anyone have a guess? 21? 21, yeah. 23. I think there's supposed to be 27 or something like that. And I can't tell you how many mediations I've done where people just had different data. And even though they had the exact same piece of information, they had different data on how to derive what they needed. So I'm imagining this comes up for you as well. So what we're hoping to do for our next exercise is there's a mapping the conflict kind of thing, kind of worksheet. And can we go to that? Great. And I think it was sent to you ahead of time. And what we're hoping is that you can take the conflict that you just described, or you can choose another one and take a few minutes for yourself, just to write down describing the conflict and see if you can identify some of the things that might be contributing to it. You know, where's there miscommunication? Are there structures or rules that aren't in place? Are there differences in needs and priorities? Have you thought about if there's different values or perceptions or comments that people are making that demonstrate a particular attitude? Or it could even be, there could be power dynamics in this case. Like, you think about role power, you know, has somebody been in the vendor a really long time compared to somebody who's new? And then what structural situations exist that could have impacted the conditions for the conflict? And just take a few minutes and write it down, maybe talk to each other about that. Do we have time to do breakouts for this?
I think so. We could do it for like 6 or 7 minutes. And I'll also, I just want to note, I think Andrew's prepared the breakouts. In this document, if you click File and then Make a Copy, you will be able to edit it. You know, this is kind of the template. So we want you to click File, Make a Copy, and then you'll have your own version for editing.
And on the second page of this, it does have some questions to think through, other considerations that you might have. So hanging on to this might be useful for when conflicts come up for you, just to think through some of the pieces, who's affected, who's impacted, what are the rules already in place? Are there skills that you have or don't have that you would need to address it? Are there other people that could assist? So this should be something that you can go back to and use at different points, but let's just try it on. I think we were going to put you together with your partner, your team member, and maybe there's even a conflict. You can each pick your own and talk to each other about it, or maybe there's one that you both are experiencing and would like to focus on that.
I just have a question. Are we reporting back or just,
I think,
or are we like handing this in typed out?
Oh, you don't have to hand it.
Yeah, you're not handing it in. We will bring everybody back for just a farewell, and at that point we'll stay on and can discuss it a little bit. But yeah, we're running short on time for today.
Yeah.
It's mostly for your needs to get the wheels turning on the conflict situation that exists at your market.
And this may be useful with Dar and Leslie's session when they're going to be talking about structures and systems in place and things like that. So it might be really useful to apply some of those things to this conflict. Maybe you could say it better, Andrew. I don't know. So,
well, I think the rooms are open and some people have gone to them. So
okay. Thanks.
I think Barbara and Emily were going to go to their own room. Emily, did you get invited to a room?
I did, but Barbara wasn't my original partner, which is fine. Like, we can go from here.
I had technical difficulties.
Yeah. Okay. I just assigned you Barbara. So, and Emily, do you have the assignment still? Can you join it?
Yes. Okay. At the bottom, if you click join breakout room, I got it.
Okay.
Jimmy, would you like to pause recording?
Yep.